Good afternoon. It's 5 p.m. in the Eastern Caribbean, Barbados and Trinidad and Tobago. It's 4 p.m. in Jamaica and 3 p.m. in Belize. Wherever you are on planet Earth, welcome to this Facebook Live edition of Let's Talk Access, a social media program produced and presented by the UWI Open Campus. I am your host, Cleveland Sam. Thank you for joining us. Today we talk about sport and more sport broadcasting, careers in sport, and qualifications in sport. And I have three guests who can break this all down for you. Today, my guests include the very familiar, renowned former West Indies cricketer, now commentator, Mr. Darren Ganga, Chief Executive Officer of the Sport Company of Trinidad and Tobago, Mr. Jason Williams, and head of the Open Campus Academy of Sport, none other than my very own colleague, Mr. Corvin Jean. Gentlemen, welcome to Let's Talk Access.
Thanks for the introduction. Nice to be here to share my thoughts and experiences.
All right, Jason, your first time, welcome.
Yes, thanks for having me. Looking forward to share some experience and some thoughts.
And Corvin Jean, no stranger to Let's Talk Access.
Not at all. Thanks again, Cleveland, and thanks for having everybody on board today.
Darren, I cannot start a sporting program in the Caribbean without asking you what has happened to the West Indies team.
Well, I mean, as someone who carried the role of opening the baton, I'll open and say that they've done us proud, I must say. When you look at what has transpired in the T20 International Series played against Sri Lanka, yes, there were a little bit of nerves, but the West Indies managed to win that series 2-1. And then they used the confidence of that win to go through the ODI series and secure a clean sweep. So it was the second time in recent times that the West Indies would have achieved such a feat of a clean sweep. The last time would have been against Ireland in early 2020, just prior to COVID-19.
Yes.
But again, I think it sort of ushers in a new dawn for the West Indies, and that started as well, I would say, with what we saw in Bangladesh with the West Indies test team.
Right. Yes, that was
so
amazing.
We're hoping that will continue, and sport, in this instance, cricket will stay at the forefront for quite a while and keep smiles on our faces.
Yes, I was going to say stay at the forefront in a positive way.
Indeed.
All right, Corvin, I don't know if you realize, but OCAS seems always to be the department that kick off the Let's Talk Access series every recruitment period. You're becoming very famous for this now.
Yeah, it is glad to know. As sportsmen, we tend to keep on the front foot, so you know how that is. So glad to be that leader on that regard.
All right, so you're on the front foot. Darren opening the baton. Awesome stuff. So Corvin, let's start with you. The last time we spoke, we were talking to you and Darren and our colleague from Wales about the broadcasting workshop, and you're having a second cohort of the workshop coming up. Tell us why we are hosting a second workshop.
I would actually leave that to Darren, but in essence, the interest was phenomenal with regards to the workshop. The feedback we got from those individuals who were part of the first cohort was phenomenal. And most of them, in fact, were asking, okay, what's next? They were looking for the second level in terms of moving forward in advancement in sport broadcasting. So based on that interest, we would have indicated, okay, prior to moving forward the next level and creating not just a second cohort, but probably an advanced certificate in sport broadcasting, we would do a follow-up session to give those individuals who did not have a chance to complete that session a chance to get in. So Alan Wilkins would have indicated his availability, Darren as well. So we're just working towards that. So Darren will give you a little more specifics with regards to that aspect.
Right, Darren, yes. As one of the facilitators.
Yes, thanks. You know, it's a common fact that in today's world, education is a continuing exercise, and the same applies for a dynamic field like sport. The sport broadcast certificate was successfully planned and completed by the University of the West Indies through its Faculty of Sport last year, where we had a cohort of just around 15 persons who participated. And these were persons from as far as Jamaica to as far as Suriname, and persons who were at different stages in their life. We had an 18-year-old and we had a 50-year-old. So that's how encompassing this certification program is. And what I must say is that I'm very excited to announce that the University of the West Indies, OCAS, the Open Campus Support as well, through the Faculty of Sport, is yet again putting on another cohort for persons who missed that first edition that we ran. Registration is currently open, and I know we will share that with everyone. What I want to talk a little bit about is some of the benefits that we gain from that first cohort, and to share a little bit about the objectives of that program, so that those looking on could possibly make use of the opportunity. In terms of that first cohort, like I said, we had a wide cross-section of different persons who registered. I must also say we had quite a number of elite athletes who were there as well, who registered and who were thinking about their life beyond competing, which was good to see. And I must share this story of one unique athlete who was a participant in that first cohort, who actually this year got the opportunity to do live broadcasting to a global audience. And that person is Shakira Salman. That's the current West Indies women's cricketer. So
and
in
she
speaking with her,
participated in the workshop last year.
yes, and this is what gave her the confidence to make use of this opportunity. In speaking with her after she would have completed the series with the West Indies and Sri Lanka in the ODIs and the T20s, she said, had it not been for that program, she would not have been in a situation to make use of this opportunity and to probably open a door that she will consider strongly for her life beyond playing for the West Indies women's team. So what we have seen in this one instance is we've seen where through the University of the West Indies Faculty of Sport, we have created a certificate program which allowed for capacity building in the field of sport broadcasts. And now we're seeing that certification being used in the actual environment and in the sport landscape for the benefit of all. And that is exactly what the University of the West Indies continues to do, build capacity so that it can suit the current landscape that it is geared towards. And that was a perfect example, I would think, for those of you looking on and those of you harboring any sort of interest in working in broadcasting or working in the field of sport. This is not only for you to become a broadcaster. This is a program that also allows you to understand the sport market, to understand where broadcasting fit in that whole ecosystem of sport, and it makes you a better person for dealing with the challenges, dealing with opportunities in that environment. So I just thought I'd share that before I talk about what the objectives of this certificate program is intended to achieve. What we want to do is we want to ensure that persons who are registered are able to articulate sport broadcasts in terms of the ethics and the international standards required for such a role. We also talk about the 4 E's in broadcasting, which is to embrace, which is to engage, which is to entertain, and which is to educate. So when you hear about the 4 E's when it comes to broadcasting, you got to try and see how you fit into that acronym of the 4 E's and those things that I mentioned there. We want to also develop the habit of encouraging persons to research, to prepare, to ensure that whatever is said suits the market, because there are cultural factors that must be taken into consideration when you're speaking to a large and diverse audience, and an audience that extends beyond your locale, and that is interesting and important for everyone to understand. So in this certificate program, we sensitize persons of that fact. We also train and prepare persons to do a live broadcast piece. And that is something that we've orchestrated within this program as a practicum, where persons, after they've gained all the experience and the theory of sport broadcasting and the entire field of broadcasting, we give them the opportunity now to actually do a live broadcast that is captured. We mimic a sporting contest that happened in the past, and we give them the chance for them to broadcast and commentate over it. So we also share the nuances across different platforms. Television broadcasting, very different to radio broadcasting, presenting, different to directing. So we share information with regard to the different roles in broadcasting. So if I was someone who was interested in sport, I would have registered for this program. So again, Cleveland, this is open. I hope that everyone on the landscape make use of the opportunity.
Well, I certainly hope too, and we're at the open campus. Darren, there's an awesome story about Shakira Selman. And I saw Corvin is saying that one of the highlights to him was hearing from Dr. Sarah Owen, who is the director of the CPE Center, listening to you and Shakira doing commentary during a recent cricket match. Darren, how was the experience though interacting with the participants during the actual workshop? Because this was done virtually as well, because we're operating in a virtual environment. How was that experience?
Well, it was good. It offered a synchronous and asynchronous opportunity for us as presenters. So we held some one-on-one sessions with persons. I must say that all the participants were so intrigued with getting an understanding of the behind the scenes as it relates to sport broadcasting. We all sit in front of our various platforms and we see the end product, but we really don't understand and appreciate what happens behind the screen. And this program does that. It and I was very much amazed by the fact that some of the participants were already working in the field of broadcasting and had quite a bit of experience. I was also impressed by persons who were specialists in different disciplines. So we had persons who were considered football specialists who had done a lot of work in that particular discipline. We had persons who were into track and field. So that diversity that we got was a great forum for everyone to share experiences, everyone to give stories that they would have encountered. And I think it was overall more rewarding. Even if you were just sitting, listening and not participating, you would have been rewarded for just being part of the sessions which were conducted. And I must also highlight that the main facilitator in this Sport Broadcast Certificate program is Mr. Alan Wilkins, who is a person who's got over 30 years in the field of broadcasting, who would have been trained with a BBC background, who would have done multi-sport work, GP Moto, the Olympics, golf, the Masters, cricket, Wimbledon. So you're getting the best of the best globally, right up close and personal for you to learn, for you to develop the fundamentals, you would say, for working in the broadcast field, for understanding it. And for me as a facilitator, that experience as well of being alongside such a reputable person who have done an extensive amount of work in the field, you always learn something new.
Definitely. All right. So covering the next cohort, can people still register at this point, and when does it start?
Yes, Cleveland. Registrations are actually open now. The launch of the program is going to be on the 26th, with the delivery of the program commencing on the 29th. Registration is open, and what we will do, we will include the link on the Facebook page for individuals who still require that link, that access.
All right, and there's a cost, I imagine.
Yes, it is. Darren, just give us an update in terms of the cost. Your mic is muted, Darren, sorry.
Sure. Right, so in terms of the costs, what we have is we have early bird early bird rate of 650 US per person.
Right.
And then you also get that rate if you register with a group of 5 persons or more.
So like a radio station or television station can register a group of their sports broadcasters, etc.
Correct. And the standard rate, and the reason why I said 650, because that's a preferential rate that you will be getting. The standard rate for the actual certificate program is US 750. So we would encourage persons to register early. We would also encourage persons to register in a group so that you can benefit from that concession being offered.
Right. And when does the actual course start?
Well, as Kevin mentioned, we have an orientation that will happen on the 26th of this month. The first session is planned for the 29th of March. So time is running out. I think within the next week and a half, that's when you should complete your registration for this certificate program.
All right. Sounds like really good stuff. Jason, are you sending any of your staff from the Trinidad and Tobago Sports Company?
Good question. Is something that we'll definitely think about. I'll liaise with Darren offline.
Okay, great. So Darren, you need to follow up with Jason to get 1 or 2 right there. Yeah?
Will do. We'll definitely do.
All right, great stuff, guys. And I just want to remind our viewers as well, generally, that the Open Campus application portal is also open for courses starting in both the summer and for the new academic year in September. So you can go onto the Open Campus website and click the apply button and get all of the information. So with that, we're going to switch the focus of the program somewhat now to look at a new program, Curvin, that OCAS is rolling out come next academic year. And this is a bachelor's program. You want to talk about that for a bit?
Sure, Cleveland. And yes, we are. One of our newest programs that will be kicking off come September, the new academic year 2021-2022, that will be the BSc Sport and Physical Literacy. And that is a degree that targets physical education teachers throughout the region. During our research, we would have found out that there is a dearth of physical education teachers. In fact, throughout the Caribbean, most of the primary and secondary school only have one physical education teacher attached. And given the influx of interest in physical education as a KEEP syllabus item, I think it is mandatory to have at least, well, a minimum of 2 to 3 physical education teachers per school. Understanding that, we would have worked with a number of stakeholders to identify the needs of those individuals to put together a robust enough degree that caters to that specific market. Again, we are pursuing a franchise agreement with the Arthur Lewis Community College for delivery of that program in St. Lucia. And moving forward from that location, we'll be working with the other state colleges across the region to have that program acknowledged as the certification program for physical education teachers. It is a very robust program, and it caters to not only persons who are interested in physical education teaching, but also individuals who are coaches who don't have the necessary teaching component towards advanced education. So we have a combination with regards to that program. We also have, we are currently working with the Gordon Street site to have a certificate that kind of matriculates into that program as well. So in addition to the BSc Sport and Physical Literacy, you could also look out for a certificate in sport and physical education. So for those individuals who are practically coaches, persons who are living secondary school or college, who don't have the necessary qualification, can then enroll in that program as a laddered approach to getting into the BSc Sport and Physical Literacy. And of course, Cleveland, separate and apart from that new degree, we also have our BSc in Sport Coaching, Sport Kinetics, and Sport Leadership and Management, which I'll be happy to explain a bit about when you are ready.
Right. So let's go back to the sports and physical literacy. So this is the first time you're offering this come September. Apart from the certificate that they can use to matriculate, what are the general requirements for entry?
The general entry requirements, we are standard across the Open Campus, which is 4 entry-level passes. And understanding that persons don't have that, yes, we do have the certificate that they can also utilize. It should be noted, however, that the program is laddered. So unlike your regular BSc, this one is made up of 3 components. So if for any reason, say for instance, if you look at the current climate where you have COVID and that have impacted some individuals negatively, if for any particular reason you cannot pursue the entire BSc, depending on where you have arrived in that pursuit, you could then ask to be either excused, or you can live with the relevant qualification, whether it be a certificate, an associate's degree, if you complete the full course, your bachelor's in sport and physical literacy.
Okay, so that's awesome. So they can start with a certificate, move to the associate degree, and complete the bachelor's somewhere down the line. So that's really flexible.
Yes, it is.
Darren, Jason, what do you think about that approach to qualifications?
I'll allow Jason.
You know, I think it's good. I'm actually looking at a document right now that I've done some research here with the 4 different areas that Kevin would have spoken about. So I think it's a good approach.
Yeah, gives people an opportunity to be flexible and gain qualification.
What I also think is we have and I speak from an athlete's point of view, we have a large pool of persons who, whilst harboring thoughts and dreams of achieving their athletic objectives in life, I think sometimes we park the academic side of our development for solely our athletic pursuits.
Yeah.
Yes, and I feel when you have a program such as this, it allows you to carry some sort of academic responsibility while you seek athletic excellence. So that is my take with regard to a program such as this. Start with a certificate program where you still have latitude to balance your academics with your extracurricular development. And then by the time you're finishing your competition stage in your career, you have already advanced yourself for life after sport. So
academically.
Correct. So that will be my advice to those of you who are still athletes and who are still looking to achieve your goals. There's no reason why you shouldn't enroll and start developing yourself and seeking some form of academic qualification to serve you in life beyond sport.
Also, I just want to add to what Darren is saying, and it should be noted because a lot of us would have gone through the primary and secondary school system, and your physical education teacher used to be someone who just played sport, or someone who just likes sport, who's actually a teacher but doesn't have the relevant sport experience or the sport knowledge. So I think this degree kind of formalizes an approach towards teaching physical education within the open, not just the open campus 17, but the wider Caribbean region. So we're moving forward to have this. We don't have a national standard per se across the region. So we are looking to work with the relevant jurisdictions to have this degree adopted as that standard that would go through every single jurisdiction.
Kervin, you just opened a whole new and different conversation about the professionalization of physical education and sport. But I'm happy you did, and I'm hoping that at some point we can have that conversation, probably with the folks who helped to develop the CAPE physical education and sports syllabus, as well as persons like Darren and others who are actually into sport full-time, and Jason and so on. Actually, I see Ishaka Roger Jackman said, this is a very good tool. It creates a segue for those transitioning from athletics to academics, similar to what you were saying, Darren. Awesome thing, Kervin. But you also have the 3 programs that you started 2 years ago. Is it 2 years ago? So we should have students should be finishing up in 1 year's time. How is that? How are those programs going?
They're going great. But just want to touch on something you just mentioned in terms of the physical education and CAPE. Mr. Watson and myself were purview to being part of a focus group that was held in Trinidad and Tobago for physical education teachers with CAPE in terms of revising the physical education curriculum. So persons would be happy to know that this current program in its iteration has actually benefited from that focus group. In some of the responses received from stakeholders were incorporated in terms of making this program more robust and more applicable to the current stakeholders. But again, to our current programs, they are moving along fine. I think we have just over 40-something students registered across all 3 of the programs. That is the coaching, the kinetics, and the sport leadership and management. The latter, the sport leadership and management, being our most the most subscribed to BSc. And just to give a little about it, in terms of the sports coaching, of course, these are specialty degrees, and the sports coaching focuses or targets persons who are involved in coaching. As you know, throughout the region, most of us tend to focus on the technical qualifications. So we look at a coach in terms of his but his educational experience. We tend to look at, okay, are you level 1 or level 2 or level 3 across a specified field? But we don't look at the academic side. And the sports coaching, BSc in sports coaching, focuses on that. Helping those individuals gain the required knowledge and expertise, not only specific to their discipline, but as to make them well-rounded individuals as a coach, looking at the support courses and the support areas. Because as you know, being a coach is not just about targeting a specific discipline or doing what has to be. You need those supporting services and courses to help bolster that offering. So that is what the sports coaching BSc targets, ensuring that coaches are infused with the requisite knowledge, experience, and skill sets to properly take individuals through their long-term athlete development programs. Subsequent to this, we have the BSc in sports kinetics, and that is a science-based degree for individuals who are interested in pursuing sports science in terms of elite athlete development, biomechanics, psychology, and those other high-level areas of sport. It also focuses on the research component in terms of helping individuals build the capacity to conduct research. And we know in the region there is a dearth of research with regards to sport and sport
Definitely.
So
Darren, sorry, Kevin. Darren wanted to make a point. Go ahead,
Yeah,
Darren.
I just wanted to endorse what Kevin said there and speak specifically to that BSc in sport coaching, and kind of share how crucial that body of knowledge is for current coaches and aspiring coaches. I think sometimes our current coaches and persons who are aspiring to coach don't see the need to qualify themselves and to build a strong base for their respective careers in coaching. And when I looked at this program and I looked at the modules in this program, this is ideal for the way sport is evolving in the landscape. Sport is evolving to the point where it's data-driven, where methodologies are constantly changing, where the understanding of the human body is so important. And if you don't have a foundation from which to pivot from, you're going to find yourself wanting in the landscape. That's if you have aspirations of being the best that you can be. So for the coaches out there, across disciplines, this is something that if I was in that situation, that I will consider a must with regard to my own development as a coach. And I just would like to encourage coaches to challenge themselves to get registered for this course, because this will separate you. This will crystallize the coaching philosophy that you would have harbored in your mind. And sometimes as a coach, you're looking for a sounding board to confirm your approach. Sometimes you're seeing things, you're going on your past experience and you're not sure. Well, here's what. There is a start point, there is a body of knowledge, there is a body of research that will give you a strong footing from which you can move from, because you would discover things in sport as a coach. You might have been a player, might not have been a player, you might have looked at sport extensively, but then to understand an athlete better, to understand the different things in terms of functional anatomy and all these things that are within this program, that is where I think you will separate yourself from the pack.
The rest, yeah, definitely. Jason, you were gonna make a comment as well?
Yeah, I actually echo Darren's sentiments here, because what we found, or what you would find, is a lot of persons call themselves coaches, and they go down the road and they print 10 blue t-shirts or green t-shirts and then open an academy and say they come to a coaching academy, but don't really know the basics behind coaching and sport. So I think this what Darren said there is really, really important.
All right, great. Kevin, you want to speak about the last program?
Sure. And also, but before I do, just add what Jason and Darren said, because I remember growing up and also playing as a national athlete, you were taught leave your problems off of the court. When you come to training, you come to train. And I think a lot of coaches don't understand how an athlete's personal life and what's going on in that affects
it can't be separated, huh?
Precisely. And I think that is what needs to happen. We need to look beyond the technical components and a more holistic approach towards coaching. And that is what that BSc offers. And in terms of the BSc Sport Leadership and Management, that degree replaces the traditional sports management degree. There was a rush, and I think prior to the last 2 or 3 years, the only academic qualification you could have pursued in the region with regard to sport was a BSc in sport management. So it's highly subscribed. Even today, it's one of our most subscribed programs because a lot of persons tend to look at the management and administration of sport. And rightly so, because we do have a lot of sport governing organizations around, and persons want to help these organizations. So basically what that degree targets is, it offers those individuals the opportunity to expand on their skill set and the capacity in terms of leading and managing sporting organizations, as well as sporting bureaucracies. We know, I think every single person here has had some interactions with either a Ministry of Sport or some sporting organizations, and it was not a good experience. And I do think persons need to step away from the whole volunteer aspect and understand to actually lead and manage a sporting organization, you need the requisite skill sets, and you don't get that off of the street. This is something that you have to diligently pursue, and this is what this degree offers, an opportunity for those individuals to expand their horizons and gain the necessary skill sets required to actively and positively manage a sporting organization.
All right, I think, Kervin, you have segued nicely into our next segment, which is the whole professionalization and careers in sport. And I want to start that all three of you gentlemen make a living from sport, from the sporting industry. Kervin, you in academics in sport, Darren as a former athlete, and now as a commentator, and Jason as a manager of a sporting organization. Jason, we're going to start with you. Can you first of all tell our viewers what is the National Sport Company of Trinidad and Tobago? Because I'm not sure that we have those in the rest of the Caribbean.
Well, Sport TT is a state enterprise founded in 2004. It initially was set up to, manage and have oversight on the various national sporting bodies within Trinidad and Tobago. We still right now manage and have oversight on the 15 largest NGBs. You're talking cricket, football, hockey, basketball, these type of sports. And we help with their administration. We help with their developmental programs. We have sort of morphed into now, assisting them with their high performance in terms of funding. The development itself has to come from the initiatives from the NGBs with our oversight, our experience, with our sport officers trying to help guide. But the programs themselves come from the NGBs. Sport TT also, we have an elite performance unit. When you look at the sports sciences side of things, we help provide these athletes with Keyshawn Walcotts and the Cleopatra Burrell, the Red Force that went to and was successful 2 weeks ago. We provided services for them and assistance in terms of psychology and strength and conditioning, which is a key part of sport. Awesome. We also would, have morphed again and added again to our responsibilities, facility management, sport facility management in terms of the national facilities, the stadia. So we have, just this morning I was telling someone in an interview, we have over $1 billion in assets on the ground, sporting facilities in Trinidad and Tobago, and per capita, anywhere else in the world, it's the most. So we look at all these different things, and we help manage. We look at managing projects for new facilities and to upgrade and maintain the current ones that we have. So Sport TT, a little bit of everything. The focus really, when it was started, was on sport development through the national governing body. So we're trying to get back there in terms of spending more of our time and efforts with development of sport.
Right. So this sounds like what in most of the Caribbean countries we call national sports councils, it seems like.
More or less, yes.
All right. So my big starting question to all three of you, which outside of being athletes, who make millions of dollars in the IPL or in the English Premier League or in La Liga, are there successful, lucrative careers in sport in the Caribbean?
Well, I mean, I could start because Darren would have mentioned earlier that, we all have this aspiring athlete within us. But at the end of the day, very few make it to the top, right? And the rest of us, the programs from UE and the other studies in sports and sports management will be very helpful. In terms of whether there are lucrative options, there are careers that can be had. Little examples, we have all these facilities, and Kevin would have mentioned to me just now, it's over $3 billion, not one. I was being very conservative with the $1 billion in assets. It's over $3 billion in assets on the ground. So that alone tells you of the type of facilities we have to manage, and sports facilities are unique. With these sports facilities, the opportunities are there for coaching and programs and academies to be set up. Now, how do we get these things done? It's through the NGB. So given the NGBs, as Kevin would have said, it's all volunteer service. We need to get away from the volunteer service and get away from sports being a recreational or a hobby. Sport is a career, and there are options available. Yes, there are options available. We all work in it. We see it day to day. All the degrees are being offered by UE right now. The way of the world has changed over the last year with COVID. If you look at streaming and content and digital, it's all about maximizing the revenue for sports through that. CPL was a huge success last year. Not one spectator on the stands. And the outreach and the impact of CPL was bigger than any previous year. So there are options available. I'll leave Darren to add some insight in terms of his experience from the athlete now.
Go ahead, Darren.
Well, just to endorse what you said there, Jason, and I think it's the sentiment echoed by everyone. If we bring everything into perspective, whilst we're talking about careers in sport outside of the athlete, if we put the athlete at the forefront, what do we get? We need to understand the process by which that athlete became an elite athlete. And that process started with a grassroots program in a community where a particular program would have piqued the interests of this boy or girl for them to start to develop a passion in a particular sport that sort of activated a family's interests, a community coach's interests, then probably a zonal, national, international interest. And with that interest comes a group of persons who in every athlete's life are required to provide that support for that athlete to be the best that he or she can be. And this is the realm that we're talking about that is quite available for every and anyone who has an interest to be a part of. You mightn't be the star athlete at the front. If you don't achieve your goals and dreams, that's fine. Or even that star athlete beyond active competition will also have a chance to come back and be plowed back into that ecosystem of sport, to work probably as a mentor or probably with an interest of opening an agency to help other young persons. So the athlete himself or herself will have a career and could have a career beyond sport. But just to run through the entire process. So coaching is available for persons on the ground across disciplines. When you move from a grassroots program to a high-performing program, maybe a high-performing youth program, you tend to find that a physical trainer is crucial from an individual perspective, from the perspective of a team as well. You normally have teams at a youth level carrying a trainer where they start developing the habits of what is required in terms of physical training to get them athletically efficient. And if you go into the elite category now, you would find that an elite athlete has to have a strength and conditioning coach, which is essential in today's world, has to have a sport nutritionist, because if you feel that eating healthy and eating the right things for a particular sport is not important, then you're not in sport in 2021, because that is cutting edge. And then you talk about the psychology of sport. So you think about sports psychology, having a psychologist and persons around that to provide that sort of support psychologically for the athlete. You talk about sport biomechanics, which is essential. We talk about the 1%ers in sport all the time. What is going to tell a Usain Bolt that his range in his joint could go a little bit further and it's not going as far as it could go? So that informs the coach. So an elite athlete has to carry a group of persons who work and coexist with each other, because there is a great amount of overlap. So if there's a deficiency in an athlete's hamstring, the physiotherapist, the psychologist, the nutritionist, the strength and conditioning person, all these persons need to be involved. And that is where the opportunities are for persons, albeit at a high performing youth level, at an elite level. And we haven't even spoken about persons who are supposed to serve the general public at large from an amateur perspective and from a recreational perspective. So that's another layer of opportunities for persons to work in sport. And we haven't even spoken about the administration of sport, which is persons who are in charge of NGBs, national governing bodies, persons who are in charge of facilities like Jason himself, persons who are in charge of policy for sport and have probably developing a national sport policy and holding positions from a leadership, management, governance perspective. Because all these things together, if you get it right, that is where you have a top sporting nation.
Right. And Jason, I must say, I mean, if we look at Trinidad, I mean, the Red Force team, some of your athletes in the last couple of Olympics, I mean, I can now kind of connect the two things in terms of the success and what organizations like yours are doing in Trinidad to ensure that those athletes have that type of support.
Yes, it's key, it's essential. And as Darren would have also said, it stems from the grassroots area. You know, you don't wake up overnight and become an elite athlete. You start from somewhere, you go through the ranks, you go through the NGBs, and once you're identified and you reach the particular heights, these are the type of jobs are available for graduates, you know, to branch out and to connect it with athletes and to provide that type of service. And very important is that elite service or the sports science service.
Yeah, Corinne, you had your hand up.
Yes, Cleveland, I just wanted to add, and in terms of speaking of the professions that are out there and the availability of employment for sports persons, I think we need to take into consideration that we are on the cusp of a transition of the industry, the sport industry in the region. Throughout our years, we've been hearing about sport development, but we're only recently seeing that investment in sport development in the region. So we identify, okay, what we need, those sports science areas and everything else. On the academic side, you have UWI providing that. But I think what is integral here is that for the persons to understand that when you go to study, a lot of persons tend to focus on, okay, where will I find a job? And getting that qualification to be employed somewhere. What is nice about those sport courses and the academics in sport, you have the ability or the skill set to work for yourself. And that focuses on self-employment. So you have a coaching degree in terms of becoming a coach and just basically developing your own practice. Sports kinetics as well, sports leadership and management. We talk about consultancies across various administrative aspects of sport. So don't look at it as, hey, I'm looking for that degree to work for somebody, but more or less I'm empowering myself, building capacity so that I generate my own income. I create my own employment. And I think that is something that is integral and for persons to take note of it.
Of course. And I know Darren probably specifically did not mention the whole commentator aspect of the thing, but I think that's a critical part as well. But guys, one of the things that I want to ask you as people who are working in the sporting arena, have you seen a change of attitude that said, oh, sport, you better go to school and learn to be a lawyer, doctor, or something, an engineer? Are we seeing that shift in attitude now, where when a child, whether a boy or girl, says to the parent that, look, I want to work in sport, I want to be an athlete, or I want to be a coach, you know, are we seeing that change in attitude now where they're being encouraged, or are they still being discouraged?
Well, I can give a real life example of that. We have a program called the OJT program in Trinidad and Tobago, on the job training. And we utilize the program to get, you know, various resources in different departments. Over the last couple of years, we would have actually reached out to OJT, and they now have a group of individuals who focus on sport, to the extent that we would have been able to get a couple of the OJTs, the trainees, to come and be part and assist the cycling team that was trying to qualify for the Olympics. And we brought them on board. They would have assisted the head coach for cycling, and they are now enrolled in Sport TT as sport officers. So we have seen some shift from the regular business management and HR and accounting to some more options in sport.
Okay, great. Happy to see that. Kervin and Darren?
Yes.
I would. Oh, go ahead, Curve.
All right, just wanted to add, I think, yes, you see it, and I think you see the results of that every day. One, you're talking about the introduction of the CAPE and the CXC syllabuses in physical education. I think that was a major step. And more so, when you look at the number of scholarships recipients from the Caribbean with regard to sports scholarships abroad, the number grows annually. So we see that transition. But I do think a lot more can be done, because I normally tell individuals there isn't that pathway coming out of secondary school that puts you or that transitions you towards sport academia per se. But I think a lot has been done. It continues to develop. And as I indicated, I think we're on the cusp of a transition. So in the future, I do see that area expanding and more individuals where we'll have a reversal of that that drop-off gap from secondary school when they hit Form 3 in terms of sport participation. So I think it has been going on, and I think it will continue to grow. But of course, it will take individuals like us to push forward, more or less to keep pushing that boundary.
Okay, great.
Just to add, Cleveland, what I must say is I've had the privilege of traveling the entire Caribbean region through cricket, and different territories are at different stages in terms of its development when it comes to this paradigm shift that we're talking about. Trinidad and Tobago is well and truly ahead because of the sort of structures that are in place, the opportunities that are in place. If I can give an idea as to when I was growing up as a young man in a rural South community harboring dreams of playing for the West Indies, it was pretty much a family effort where support wasn't easy to come by, where facilities were quite limited. And yeah, through those challenges, you navigated your way towards achieving your goals and dreams as an athlete. Today, if I look at a young 11, 12-year-old who harbors the same dreams and aspirations, I see a lot of improvement and positive change as it relates to those challenges that I face. So that in itself is a great improvement. And even in my day, my dad was a teacher. And even though I excelled at the youth level, he was very quick to check me and to say, hey, listen, this is not a guaranteed career, that your education is just as important as your cricket. Yeah. And that is why I went on to do a law degree while I was playing cricket. So, and it had to do with the influence, the thinking. Now, when I talk to young players, parents now actually take their kids to academies while they're young. And there's a distinctive change in the thinking and the culture. So that is, to me, quite positive. But if I go to the smaller islands in the Caribbean, I still think a lot of that influence is left to possibly a school that has an interest in a particular sport, to a family who has a passion for a particular sport, maybe driven by the child, and it is not institutionalized pretty much, where the process and the pathway for development, that's right, the pathway for development of that athlete is not clear-cut. It's a hit or miss or ad hoc sort of structure in place. And I'm not saying that as a criticism. All I'm saying is some some territories are at a different stage when it comes to that. So
actually, I did some research in globalization and sport a long time ago for a degree. And one of the things that the young people who I interviewed young people from Jamaica, St. Vincent, St. Kitts, and Antigua. And one of the things that they said to me in the questionnaire was that, particularly related to West Indies cricketers, They were not aware of the salaries that they made, but they knew how much Shaquille O'Neal was making, or Michael Jordan made, or Thierry Henry was making. Because in the Caribbean, people tend to be very cagey about salaries, whereas in international sport, you know, the first sentence of an announcement of a contract contains a person's salary. Is sporting careers in the region lucrative financially?
I would have sent to Jason for that one, but I do think they are. I think for those who reach the highest levels of the sport, it is. When you talk about national level representation, it is left wanting because we still rely on goodwill throughout the region for national service. And I do think that has to change, and we have to transition from, of course, that voluntary aspect to a professional, that professional foundation, so that individuals don't just, okay, it's national duty, I get time off from work and I go and represent my country, but instead it will be a developmental and professional pathway where you're a professional athlete and paid for you to represent your country. It has not, sadly, it hasn't manifested. And that is the issue that we're facing. The only persons who can say they recoup money are those individuals who reach the elite level status. And I think that's where we need the change. So over to
yeah, I was really thinking outside of the athletes. I was really thinking in terms of the other careers in sport, not so much the athletes, because we know the athletes live fairly comfortably, but the people who are around them that Darren and Jason and yourself spoke about, do they live as comfortable?
Sorry, go ahead, Darren.
Okay, if I may, I would say that the peripheral group of persons around the elite athletes, when you compare what they earn to international standards, it's below par. And a lot of that has to do with our jurisdiction, the size of our market as a sporting nation, and even if we take the entire Caribbean as a whole. If you take the entire Caribbean as a whole, you match that to say an India, to say a Pakistan or an England. And in terms of supply and demand, and in terms of those economies as against ours, it doesn't allow for the type of revenue that will sustain the high levels of sort of remuneration around the peripheral group of persons that support an athlete. In other landscapes, it does, and it's just a matter of economics too. Because if you look at it from a television production point of view, if you're in a jurisdiction where you have a high number of eyeballs, as they say, a lot of people looking at a particular sporting event, that's a lot of revenue. And that revenue transfers from the broadcaster to the promoter, to the athlete, to the peripheral team. And that's how it usually operates. So if you're not generating revenue in a particular discipline, possibly at the highest level, you're going to find that that is going to be impacting everyone in that food chain. And it is going to vary across sport depending on the popularity and depending on how much revenue it earns globally.
Fair enough.
And also, Darren, depending on the success of the sport and the team.
Yes.
Depending on that success,
always breeds more success.
Correct. It depends on the success, the amount more revenue filters down to the entire team.
All right. Guys, we only have about 7 minutes. We have 3 questions. Kervin, the first one is for you in terms of the student wants to know if they have 6 CSEC passes and a passion for sports, but they have no experience. Can they do the sports leadership program? Can they apply for that program?
Yes, they can, and it is open to those individuals. As I would have indicated, I think the minimum entry requirement is 4 passes. But persons should also know at the OCAS, we tend to work with individuals, especially those who don't meet the entry requirements. We work with them, probably get them the remedial courses that they need to help them with their matriculation.
To matriculate.
Right? So,
all right. All right, this one is for you and Darren because it speaks about, are there scholarships for the existing sports programs at the University of the West Indies?
Yes, there are. Just to answer, yes, there are. Both Cave Hill, Mona, and St. Augustine offer scholarships to their programs. Additionally, the Open Campus, we had initiated the conversation to have scholarships available. We still have to finalize that, and we hope to finalize that before the next semester. But there are scholarships available. And outside of the UE network, remember, throughout the Caribbean region, there are other scholarships available that facilitate sports studies as well. So that is a yes.
So that's the answer to Rashida's question. And Calvin, we have from Mr. Roger Jackman. He seems as he's from Guyana. He was asking is it possible to have a cohort of beneficiaries of this program since we are not a contributing territory, meaning Guyanese. So he would like to know if you can have a cohort of Guyanese participants in this program. I'm sure the answer is yes.
Of course, yes. And more so, I think the principal and the vice chancellor would have articulated where UE is then opening up in Guyana. So, and I would have made the suggestion to the principal at our OCLT to broach the discussions with the relevant minister to have sport programming included on the offerings of programs in Guyana. So just to answer yes, and you can look forward to that. That is something that may manifest far sooner than you expected.
All right, gentlemen, believe it or not, we only have 5 more minutes. So I'm going to give each of you 1 minute for your final thoughts. Let's start with Jason.
Thank you. So in this instance, I'll be the opening batsman. What I must say is that sport to me, and we've said this many times in sport companies, sport is an avenue out. We look at all the different, levels of funding that is being channeled to different areas. But sport to me is a way out. And I think with all the programs at UE, you can make the career. Not everyone, as I said, will be that particular elite athlete or the international superstar. But as Darren would have hinted, you have all the support staff all the way. To me, in terms of the new normal with COVID and the way forward, you have lots of opportunities in terms of data, statistics, digital marketing, things like that. So I think for the students coming out of UE, look at it that you have different branches available, you have different options, you have different opportunities, and it's just to go out and get there. Don't tell yourself that you're all going to be a superstar. Not possible. But we can be the background superstar for the elite athletes and the success story for the country.
All right, Darren Ganga.
Yes, I would like to close by just sharing a story, a personal story. It was in relation to a bold step that I took when I was a 17-year-old young man. I had just finished A-levels at Naparima College, and I really wanted to develop myself academically, whilst also pursue a professional cricketing career. And I went to the University of the West Indies back then. That was very early in the 90s. And there was no avenue for me to study while I did this because a lot of the programs had to be done at the university where you attended classes, and there was no online platform, no remote platform for you to study. I eventually had the opportunity to take that program at another tertiary level institution and pursue my academic interests there. So the point that I'm trying to make from that story is by me doing that has paved the way for my life beyond sport. And I'm very grateful that I did take that opportunity. So many of you young boys and girls looking on might think that you don't have to do this in terms of make use of one of the opportunities. You have a passion for sport and you think that there's an opportunity that you can make a living from sport. Hey, you mightn't see it tomorrow, but what you do with regard to enrolling in these programs is going to set you up for life. In 5 years' time, in 10 years' time, it's going to allow you a chance to pivot into other things that you love and you discover, because this field is dynamic and evolving. So you want to establish a good base. I also want to say for mature students as well, don't think that these programs are only for young boys and girls coming out of secondary school and wanting to develop themselves and have a career. If you have a career currently outside of sport, this field is expanding, and the space is not Trinidad and Tobago. The space is not the Caribbean. The space is the entire world.
Global,
so you can global. It's a global space. So the opportunities are plenty. Get yourself certified and give yourself a better chance of being the best that you can be. Thanks very much for having me.
Thank you, Darren. And I want to say the open campus have solved that problem that you had when you were 17. Because just to put it out there, all of these programs we discussed today are online, 100% online. All right, Corvin Jean.
Yes, sir. And just to reiterate Darren's sentiments, because about 11 years ago, I would have made the transition myself from a professional firefighter and first responder across to sport administration. And look at it now, I would have gone through a number of NGBs, gone to the Ministry of Sport, and now I head a sport academy. So the opportunities are there. Most of all, I want an individual to focus on is that the Open Campus Academy of Sport, we don't just offer bachelor's degrees. We do have those certificate programs, and we also do professional development across seminars and workshops as well. Take, for instance, the sport broadcasting, and we're currently working with the Faculty of Law to come up with a sports law workshop as well. So it's not just about the academic side of things. We do look at the technical and vocational aspects of sport development. We would have indicated earlier on that there is a lack of a developmental pathway for persons who wanted to pursue the professional advancement in sport. And the same thing, when you look at the technical and vocational programs offered across the region, sport is never one of those items. To that, then we've engaged the Ministry of Community Development and Sport, as well as Social Development in Trinidad. And we plan to go throughout the region, engage those ministries to invest in sport development, the vocational aspects, the technical aspects of sport development, whether it be the courses that we offer, coaching certification, NGB administration, and the like, so that individuals don't have to focus strictly on the BScs, but you can focus on your pathway development through those matriculative courses that we will offer at the Open Campus Academy of Sport. And just to add a point, in the upcoming weeks, we are going to be launching a research instrument to target the region specifically to find out the sport academic needs. So persons can look out for that, where you can indicate, okay, what level and what areas you would like to study in sport, so that we could work towards providing them for the region. So again, admissions are open at the Open Campus Academy of Sport for our sport programs, the BSc Sport Leadership and Management, Sport Coaching, Sport Kinetics, and Sport and Physical Literacy. Please feel free to apply. Also, the Sport Broadcasting Workshop begins on the 26th. Of course, it's going to be limited spaces available, so the first come, first received. So please, persons, don't wait for the last minute. Over to you, Dr.
Gentlemen, it was my pleasure to have you on Let's Talk Access today, and I wish you great success in the workshop as well as your courses. And Jason, of course, all the work you're doing in Trinidad and Tobago with all of the sporting bodies there. And thank you on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube for joining us today. Special thanks to my panelists, Darren Ganga, Jason Williams, and Corvin Jean. Thanks as well to Patrick Johnson, David Foster, Cherise Glasgow, Marcia Reed for handling things technical and the questions and queries. Until next time, I've been your host, Cleveland Sam. Goodbye.